Night Boat to Freedom by Margot Raven. If I close my eyes, I can still remember being a boy in the pine board cabin where I was born on Christmas morning and got my name, Christmas John. I can see the river, too, that swept wide by Old Master's big house in Kentucky, keeping us a boat trip away from Ohio and freedom. But mostly I can see Granny Judith, who raised me from a baby, bending over her dye pots, boiling and stirring up hanks of thread. I can see her hanging thread out to dry, then taking a hank of it to weave up in the loom house, weave it into a color of the rainbow coming from her old pot, indigo dyeing pretty blue, bay leaves sun yellow, pine straw making purple, and bamboo turning turkey red, the color that stole Granny Judith from Africa and put her in slavery. One night, by Pinewood Light, Granny Judith told me the story of the strangers who came to her village and laid down a red flannel cloth in front of her. It was so pretty she grabbed for it, but they tricked her on with bigger pieces till they got her across the river and onto a ship. Lord child, Granny Judith cried, when that ship sailed away I wept to go home. But the ship sailed on across the ocean, and the pretty color of red turned the sad color of slavery for me. Then Granny Judith spoke so low even the dark couldn't hear her. But now, Christmas John, we got a chance to learn the color of freedom. A man across the river has a station for escaping slaves. Cook's child Molly can go to him by boat tomorrow when the moon's black. I'm asking you to take her. I grew so quiet you could have heard a sewing needle fall on feathers. I was 12 summers grown and a strong hulk of a boy, but I felt feeble as a baby knowing what she wanted me to do. I know you got fear, child, Granny Judith said, but what scares the head is best done with the heart. Master lets you go about 'cause you're young yet. You can slip over and back before morning star come, and I'll be here praying and waiting to know what color Molly wore to freedom. All the next day my mind saw the overseer laying the rawhide on my back if I got caught. But then I saw Molly's big sad eyes watching me. So after dusk settled, I found the old boat hidden by the Kentucky station master in the woodsy part of the river bottom. The boat was so weathered I prayed it would keep us safe as Molly slipped in by me. It was black dark and I couldn't see her, but I felt her eyes. We didn't risk to speak. I just rowed in the cold, praying nobody would hear my oars slapping through the water. The current pulled hard and my heart pounded. All I knew about the Ohio side was to row toward a lighthouse and a ringing bell. Would patrollers with whips be there waiting for us? Finally, I saw a tall light and pulled to it. 2 men appeared from the shadows. One grabbed for the girl, the other for me. I thought we were caught till a foghorn voice asked me, "You hungry, boy?" I shook my head no, unable to speak. Then I figured those men had to be the Ohio station masters. Just before I pushed off, I remembered to ask Molly what color dress she was wearing. "Blue," came back her whispered answer. It was the only word she said all night. Later, when I told it to Granny Judith in our cabin, it made her smile something beautiful. After that first trip, I didn't sleep easy for weeks. Then I saw no one was any the wiser to what I'd done. By and by I got to like the idea of helping others across the river. Granny Judith did, too, saying as long as we had each other we'd get by where we were a bit longer. Soon I was making 3 and 4 trips a month. Sometimes I took 2 people, sometimes a whole boatload. They'd meet me in the open on the black nights of the moon and gave me a password from the Bible, Menere. Then I'd row them across the river in that old boat that became my friend. Night after night it kept me and my secret life safe as I'd hurried back in the dark. Boat and me making it to shore just as the morning star lit the sky. What color is freedom tonight, Christmas John? Granny Judith asked when I'd sneak back into our cabin. I'd tell her yellow, indigo, green, the colors worn by people in the night, people I could touch but never see. One day I saw Granny Judith cooking up colors in her old pot, dyeing cloth. She said she had a dream vision to make a quilt and stretch out the freedom colors in pretty squares like a rainbow bridge from side to side. When there's only 2 squares left to finishing, our work will be done here. Then, Christmas John, she shivered, leaning closer, Dream says we got to get ourselves over the river, 'cause the danger's gonna grow awful. Black moon by black moon, I made the river trips, and square by square, Granny Judith's quilt grew. Soon a whole year had passed. Master had me working in the fields now, and I had to take bigger chances to sneak off. Then one night, about July, when the green corn was ripe enough to eat, I stepped out of the boat and heard bloodhounds baying close by. I hid up a tree, shaken so badly I could hardly hold on till the dogs left. Thank the Lord, Granny Judith had sewn little pouches stuffed with ground-up Indian turnip and tied them on my feet. The root smelled like strong pepper and kept the dogs from knowing my scent. You'd surely been killed, Granny Judith cried when I told her about the dogs. Then she held the quilt in the pine knot light. There were only 2 squares missing to bridge the cloth end to end. Put this on, Granny Judith said as she handed me a fine new shirt she'd woven and dyed. In the low light, her needles jumped silver up and down as she sewed a new patch on the quilt. It was the color of my shirt, turkey red. It's your freedom color, she smiled, 'cause tonight you've got to row yourself to safety, Christmas John. But where's your quilt patch, Granny Judith? I asked. We're going together. That's foolish talk, child, she said and shook her head. Morning star's nearly here, and those dogs are all about. I'd just get you caught, slow you down. Granny Judith put the near-finished quilt into my hands and pressed her cheek to mine. You take my night colors to the freedom side where they belong, and don't you cry for me, Christmas John, her voice grew strong. 'Cause love don't stop at a river, and no river's wide enough to keep us apart. Then she hugged me hard and gentled me out the door with my heart aching till I thought it would burst. I tore off faster than a wild horse into the woods, but near some muddy ground my feet slowed. A breeze fanned my face. I looked to the sky. No morning star yet, no dogs. How could I leave Granny Judith? Freedom's got no color for me without you, I said, opening the cabin door and grabbing for her. I could feel her trembling, so I put her hand into my beaten chest. What scares the head is best done with the heart. Let me take you across. Praise God, child, your heart's brave enough for both of us. Her eyes tendered. Then she stood to come with me. Quiet as we could, we cut our way through the woods. Then I heard the dogs start up again. Morning star rose in the purple night as I got as close to the boat. We slipped over its side and headed for the light and the bell. I pulled the oars hard. Behind me I heard the bloodhounds. Slave hunters with guns and torches swept the water for us. I rowed harder, praying to hear the sound of that bell. The night stayed quiet for the longest time. Then I heard it, the bell. But no matter how hard I rowed, land didn't get any closer. Finally, I saw the spill of the lighthouse beam in the river. I rowed my boat toward it. Just when I thought I'd collapse, we reached shore. Ohio! Friendly arms and the foghorn voice helped us to the dock. Sweat ran down our faces and Granny Judith cried, shaken from fear and joy. I wrapped the quilt around her like a big warm hug and touched the one empty patch on the cloth. Then, with the last of my breath, I asked her the question she'd asked me so many times. What color is freedom tonight? Oh, Lord, child, she let out a great song of a laugh. Didn't my dye pot teach you anything about colors? Look at us, Christmas John, she cried, holding up her arms to the last whisper of night. In the dark of the moon, we are all the colors of freedom, sugar. You and me, child, you and me. Slowly pink morning cracked the sky. Behind us the water lapped against the dock. I turned one last time to see my weathered old friend, the boat that brought us and so many others across the river to freedom. In that new day rising, I watched it rock peaceful as a babe's cradle that's done its work for the night.